And another thing is that people need to have follow through. I learned this a long time ago. It was also reiterated when my son was diagnosed with autism. I said, what's the best way to actually make sure that I can continue to keep him on the right track? They told me follow through no matter what. He's going to have meltdowns. He's going to have situations that he's just not going to be happy, totally uncomfortable, but you have to stand your ground, because once you stand your ground, he understands that you're standing your ground, and therefore he has no choice but to comply.
Try to live well and prosper. Don't trust your doctor. Ruthless with my wordplay. No, I'm not a shotter, but I got them hits, man, coming straight out the barrio. That's why I'm hip hop sicario. I like my privacy. I show out every now and then.
Everyone, welcome back to the Rolo Runs the City podcast. I am your host, Rolo, and I am very grateful to be back here with you for another week. Yes, this is episode number 102, and we are greatly appreciative of you guys always checking this out, man. But we're going to start off with the particulars. You guys already know, if you want to hit me up on Facebook or Instagram at Rolo Runs the City Podcast, also at Rolo Runs the City Music. I am on both platforms. Check both of those handles out. And I'm also on X at Rolo Runs the City, as well as TikTok at Rolo Runs the City _. And if you're on the YouTube for the video content, either the podcast or the music, you can find both. Just go ahead and check out Rolo Runs the City. You will find me there and on all of our other digital streaming platforms, Spotify, Amazon, Apple, wherever, I'm there. And of course, all things Rolo. Let's not forget to check out RoloRunsTheCity.com. That is RoloRunsTheCity.com. And without further ado, we're going to get onto the show. Okay. This show here is something that's absolutely important when it comes to setting a basis of how your life needs to be. Everybody wants respect. We don't really start off with respect. So, of course, the title of this episode is Everyone Wants Respect Until It's Time to Earn It. And the reason why I wanted to go ahead and put this episode out is because I noticed there's so many people that they live in this entitled society, thinking that everything is just given to them. We live in the participation trophy era, where it's like, hey, thanks for just showing up, and we're happy that you just showed up. And even people that don't show up, we celebrate them anyway, because their name may be attached to a project, although they weren't actually involved in it, and it's unfortunate. That's just where we're at right now. I don't want to sound like an old head that's complaining about, oh, this new generation doesn't know what it is to work hard. That's not what I'm doing. But at the end of the day, you have to understand, if you want to have respect, it must be earned. And you have to understand there's going to be a lot of people that may not respect you, but it's because, in actuality, respect starts within. And if they don't have a respect for themselves, then they will definitely not respect you. So I definitely wanted to put this episode together, because this is absolutely key when it comes to personal and professional development. And it's something that needs to be understood. There's a lot of times where you may not get the respect that you deserve, but they must respect your process. They must respect your progress. And you have to respect the work that's being put out. So, many people, they want a title, they want to lead, but when it comes to sacrifice, well, they basically leave. Okay. Of course, having, to receive respect from somebody, obviously you have to be there to put in the work. You have to show up. You have to do what's necessary to bring the best possible outcome. Pretty much, overly promised and overly delivering, provide as much value as you can for anybody who you come in contact with. That just goes without being said. Okay. So many people expect respect, but haven't built anything worthy of it. And I thought about this. There's so many people out there that they just want to be very abrasive when it comes to how they want to be perceived. But in actuality, many people don't actually deliver on what they're promising. And there's so many people out there right now in this day and age where we have people that are just, they're not showing up. Okay. And we don't want to be the society that used to do things and we no longer do them. Okay. Like the world was roaming at one time with dinosaurs and all this other stuff, right? Then of course we're finding all sorts of fossils and things like that. But their impact is no longer found on this earth besides being in a damn museum. And that's it, you know? So what we want to make sure is that we deliver on what we say. And, even though people are saying, oh, in 100 years, none of this is going to matter, that's all fine and well. But while you're here, build something great, leave this place better than the way you found it. And I'm a firm believer in that. When I came into this place, when I was born a very long time ago, this was not the greatest of circumstances I was brought into. However, I know when I leave, this place will be a lot better than the way I found it. Whether if I'm impacting that one act at a time, if my children are able to carry what I've given them and pass down to them, and they're able to actually execute on being great human beings, I know that I've done my job. But again, like I said, respect isn't given because you could talk that talk. There's a lot of people, social media makes everyone feel like they're important. And in actuality, I'm not saying that you're not important, but what I am saying is the world is not about you. So the sooner that people can understand that the world doesn't evolve around you, the much freedom that you're going to get from having that. You don't have to feel as if you're someone that's like, man, like, oh, I want to do this and I want to do that and I want to be famous and I want to do this and I want everybody to know what I've done. And when you start learning that it's not about you, it's so liberating. Okay. And in actuality, I find so much freedom in serving other people. And it's not so much that I'm a servant to situations, because this is stuff that's, coming from me. Okay. If I want to help somebody out with a project, then I want to go ahead and do that. If I got to help somebody, relocate offices, then I got to do that. Or even, just the tiniest of things. If I have to go pick up somebody's child, and say, hey, I'm not going to be able to make it. You think you can pick up my child? It's like, first of all, I'm not going to get arrested because, do you have me as an emergency contact? So those are things that I think about. Like, it's at the end of the day, it's not about you just wanting all the credit. Like, dude, if you're being service driven, I think that's more important than anything. That weighs a ton, as opposed to somebody who's vain and who's expecting without doing. It just is what it is. And being loud doesn't equate respect. You know what I mean? There's so many people that are out there making so much noise, and in actuality, the noise is getting you nowhere, because all it's doing is just making you be a part of the saturated content that's already out there, making a whole bunch of rah-rah noise. And in actuality, you're not achieving on anything significant, because it's crazy. I remember I had seen an interview. I forgot who was being interviewed, but one time they talked about Bruce Willis. God bless him. I know he's going through his situations in reference to his health. But he told somebody, he said, I have a knack of speaking low, because they know when I speak low, I draw people in. And when I draw people in, then they know that I'm going to say something with some validity, as opposed to like always talking loud, making noise, because then I'm consistently being ignored. So that's a lot of wisdom all in that statement by itself. But it is the absolute truth, And another thing is that people need to have follow through. I learned this a long time ago. It was also reiterated when my son was diagnosed with autism. I said, what's the best way to actually make sure that I can continue to keep him on the right track? They told me follow through no matter what. He's going to have meltdowns. He's going to have situations that he's just not going to be happy, totally uncomfortable, but you have to stand your ground, because once you stand your ground, he understands that you're standing your ground, and therefore he has no choice but to comply. So they don't mean that in an aggressive manner or anything like that, but there's just sometimes like, hey, like, you can't sit over here. You have to sit over there, because food is meant to be eaten at the dinner table. And he may gripe and cry and yell, and it's like, no, I said what I said. Sit down, stay there, eat. And that's just a simple example of having follow through, but just having accountability of knowing that you can follow through on a task and not waver on your decisions is absolutely major, especially when it comes to being respected, because there's so many people that don't understand that no one respects somebody who waves like the flag. It's either you're on one side or you're on the other side. If a decision is made, it's made. Whether if you're right or wrong, it is what it is. But people will respect the fact that you made a decision at the end of the day, point blank period. What nobody likes is the unpredictability. Okay? Like if I'm making a decision, they're like, hey, Rolo made this decision. It may not be the right decision, but we know what we get, right? People like to know what they get. They like certainty. So whenever you're a person who's very undecisive and who wavers and we don't know if we're going to go here or go there, then it kind of gravitates away from people actually respecting you because of the fact that it's like you look like you don't know what the hell you're doing. You know, that just goes without being said, right? And too many people overpromise and underdeliver. And I mentioned earlier that you should be overpromising and overdelivering, actually doing what you can to provide as much value as you can. You know, there's a lot of times that you run into a lot of hiccups to where you're like, damn, I may lose money on this. But at the end of the day, are you really losing money when it comes to your reputation? You want your reputation to make sure that it precedes you. Before you even meet somebody, they're like, oh, damn, so you're Rolo. Hey, how you doing? Heard a lot about you. You don't want to hear like, damn, I heard to stay away from this guy, and they don't even come and introduce themselves. You know what I mean? So you always want to make sure that you're doing what you can to protect your identity at all costs. Like we talked about that in a few episodes back, talking about, you know, controlling the narrative. You want to make sure that you control the narrative at all costs. You don't want anybody to go ahead and tell anyone your story without your authorization. Okay. We see so many biopics all the time in Hollywood where they don't even get permission of the person that they're making the film for. You know, I've heard this happen with Mike Tyson, with Michael Jordan. It's crazy. Right. And I'm like, wow, how do they even do that? You know, I'm like, is there some sort of a litigation they go through for that? You know, so then that way they can go ahead and right that wrong, because evidently if they didn't get the permission, they're not getting the check from it. You know, so I don't know. That's another story for another day. But my whole point is to make sure that you always control your narrative, no matter what, at all costs. Nobody should be telling your story. You should be telling your story, because at the end of the day, if they want to speak your truth, it's going to have to come from you, not from them. Okay, so that just is what it is. So you always want to make sure that you overpromise and you do not underdeliver, because then people will look at you like you're just some used car salesman and some snake oil salesman who's just all about getting a quick buck, burning every bridge after they cross it, you know, and you definitely don't want to do that. You don't want to do that personally or professionally, for sure. Okay. Because to be honest with you, you know, gaining equity monetarily, that's a good move. But you know, emotional equity is good too. Okay, I believe that the relationship is with the people, and if the people don't trust you, then you're just not going to be a person who's going to thrive. Period. Because at the end of the day, you should be overpromising and over delivering, because that's just the person that you need to be in order to be well respected. And a lot of people may say all the time, oh, well, you know, I don't have no respect for that guy because they're just not willing to give it to you anyway. And that's all fine and well. You know, to each is his or her own. But I know for me, I do everything that I can to make sure that if my name is attached to something, they know like, hey, this is good to go. There's validity behind it. You know, Rolo did that. No questions asked. It's almost like if you go to a drive-through at a place and you know that they don't make mistakes. And I know this because my wife and I will go grab something to eat and we'll say, hey, you know, let's go hit this drive-through. I'm not talking about no McDonald's, not like that. No, I'm talking about, you know, just, you know, if we want to go to certain fast food places that, or we're just doing a dining pickup, right? And I'm like, we know we don't have to check this food because I know they got everything. And sure enough, we'll go home and they have everything we've ordered. Okay. Now, if you go to a place, I don't want to mention any of these places, but you go to certain fast food places, if you don't check your order before you leave that window, you go home, you're going to be disappointed. So that's what you don't want to do. You don't want to be that type of person that's going to overpromise and underdeliver, because it's just a bad look, and then people don't mess with you. It just is what it is. Okay. But respect starts within. We always talk about that. My motto has always been, ever since, especially since I've been in the military, was right place, right time, right uniform. You know, you can never go wrong with that. You always want to make sure that you meet deadlines, whether if it's self-imposed or otherwise, or from somebody higher. You always want to make sure that you're meeting your deadlines, and you want to hope that your deadlines not only are met, but you can kind of front load it and say, hey, you know, I still met my deadline and still had a few more weeks before things even had to be turned in. So that's one thing that I'm still working on, to be quite honest with you. There's many projects that I have going on that I have hard deadlines on that it upsets me when I pass my deadline, but I do understand that I am human as well, but that's no excuse. If you hold yourself to the fire, you know, just make sure that it you become an iron sword and it's not burnt flesh at the end of the day, right? You want to make sure that you stay sharp. Okay. Discipline with your body, business, and your moral code. Okay. You definitely want to make sure that you have good discipline within yourself. You want to make sure that you're taking care of your body, as well as, ensuring that whatever you consume in reference to content is something that's going to enhance your ability to become a better person, as opposed to decrease your mental capacity by watching people falling off of ladders all day, right? Let's just be honest. As well as whatever you eat too. You want to make sure that you're not always eating fried food. If you're, eating baked food, whole foods, staying away from the ultra processed foods and keeping that stuff to a minimum. Nobody's perfect, but at the end of the day, as long as you're striving to be that better version of yourself, then hey, why not try to go for it, right? Why not you, right? You see so many people who have become successful, win championships and all this stuff. Why not you? Why can't you do it? So I'm a firm believer that people can actually do what they want to do as long as they're able to execute on it, and they can execute on it. It takes a little sacrifice, it takes a little discipline, but that just comes with the territory of wanting to be great. Okay. People want authority, leadership, success, and loyalty, but people don't want accountability, sacrifice, discipline, or even give loyalty in return. Okay. I remember I was working with this guy a long time ago. It's probably about 15 years ago. And this dude would come in, to the office, right? And he'll say, "Man, Rolo, man, I just came from the office down at the other at the other end of the building, and man, it was so horrible, man. So and so and this other person too, they both called out, and now this guy's working by himself. And, they asked me if I could stay there. And I was like, yeah, but, Rolo's by himself over here. So, this is where I'm supposed to be at with him. So, hey, man, whatever you do, man, let's just not try to screw each other over, man. Let's try not to call out, man. Let's always make sure we got each other's back. Right. Now, mind you, the guy had at this time was probably, shoot, I don't even remember. I know he was about 10 years older than me. I remember for sure. And I just looked at him. I was like, yeah, okay. Like, I'm listening to the way he was, but I knew the type of person he was. Okay. And not to say I didn't respect him or anything like that, but his actions didn't warrant respect. Right. So next thing you know, I'm working by myself in the office, trying to process, personnel coming in, picking up orders, as well as seeing what's going on with deliveries, a whole bunch of stuff, right? Obviously. And it was crazy, man. The dude would call out, right? And the crazy thing is that the company that we currently had worked for at that time had just bought out, they went ahead and did away with having its own company as a whole. And they decided to go with a third party. So we worked for the third party. Okay. And the gentleman that I worked with the original company who decided to go ahead and sell their product. They gave him a severance, but at the same time, since he had tenure with the company, they gave him the same benefits that he had with the original company when he started to work with us, the third party. And this guy, he had a lot of PTO, sick days, all that, right? So obviously we didn't have that because we worked for the third party, and I wasn't there that long anyway when I had, started with them. And this guy had worked for that other company for years, like 20 years. So, he had some good benefits behind him. So needless to say, this guy was just calling out left and right, left me working by myself, but this also taught me how to operate on my own. And I'm not saying that I can do everything by myself, but if I have to hold everything down, I am a diamond when the pressure is on. I am not a busted pipe, and I'm not fixing to burst or leak. Okay. I make sure that I perform. Whether you perform under great circumstances or chaos, we still want to deliver the same results. So I was able to actually do that. And this guy, he was just full of crap. And, I liked him. Great guy. Don't get me wrong. Great guy. Right. But I say this all the time about many people, man, that we have a world full of great people. I will not kid you not. Okay. Now, our workforce, that's another thing. Okay. The workforce is not really the greatest. Although we have great people working in the workforce, but in reference to how they work and their work ethic, it is absolutely trash. So I always said to myself, if I decide to do something on my own, it'll be something that's going to be very beneficial for me, because I have made so many millionaires just working as an employee for somebody, or I have made and fed so many families because I've had people working with me that were not pulling their weight, and I had to always assist them with their task as well as my own. And the crazy thing was, I always just say this all the time, and I don't say this to be ignorant. It was just actual facts. I told him, I said, hey man, I notice you always need work, man, but do you need help spending that check? Because I know I earned you at least a third of what you're making right now. Okay. And I also, if you want to be technically honest, like, I can say I deserve that check 100%, because if I didn't come through to do what I need to do, they would have tossed your ass a long time ago. All right. That's not being cocky about, how I work, but I know what I bring to the table. So there's a lot of people that don't have the same approach. Okay. But like I said, we live in a great world full of great people. However, when it comes to that workforce, especially here in America, come on, man. We got to do better. This is the reason why we're being passed up by China and a whole bunch of other foreign entities, because of the fact that people have gotten too entitled because they think respect needs to be here right now without earning it. So this is our original premise of what we're talking about. It's not how it works. Okay. But earning respect takes time. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort to put into your community, to put into any other project that you're working on with people, period. There's going to be a lot of people. Like, I have so much respect for many folks because I look at what they do especially outside of whatever we're involved in. Whether if we're doing work or whether if we're doing some community stuff or whatever, I always look at the family dynamic. I look at how they are with their significant other, how they are with their kids. And dude, that for me, that goes a long way, because those are the unseen hours that get put in. And there's a lot of work behind that as well. So when you see them, that they're actually able to have a great experience outside of the task at hand, dude, that is success, period. A lot of people want to tie it into monetization. A lot of people want to tie it into a career field, maybe their physique, whatever. But what did Earl Nightingale say? I think he says success is based on a worthy ideal. And I'm going to be quite honest with you. That is very ideal for somebody who wants to build a family, has a family, and actually has success with that family and the things that they do outside of the task at hand. It goes a long way, and I appreciate when people put foot to ass for their cause. That is their why, and that's the reason why they execute the way they do. Okay? But there's no shortcuts. Consistency also builds credibility. So it's always good to be consistent no matter what you do. So don't be consistently inconsistent, because that's going to make you look horrible. Don't do it. Okay. And discipline absolutely compounds. So the more that you hate to do something and the more that you keep running through that wall and actually get through your task, it's only going to benefit you, point blank, period. Okay. And if you want respect, stop asking for it. Be a person who commands it. Okay. You don't have to ask to be respected. You don't have to ask to be seen. Just do what you can to serve as many people as you can and become the best version of yourself that you could possibly be. Because doing that alone will get you so far. If you don't do that, you're not going to go anywhere, and it does take a village. So remember, no one does it by themselves. But anyway, that is my show for this week. I greatly do appreciate you guys. I know I haven't spent much time grasping for air, but I'm glad that I was able to go ahead and give you this conversation the way you needed to hear it this week, man. But always remember, be the goat, never sheep, and don't sleep on your dreams. Take care and Godspeed. Peace.